because the moment you say Jesus, oh, we don't want to hear from you. Worldview Weekend, Worldview Tube, Worldview Radio, Worldview Foundation gives me and this ministry the platform to do that, to come and bring that perspective of geopolitical, national security, and all those things, but yet bring it always back to the Word of God and make sure that God's people have a biblical worldview. So I pray that you will prayerfully consider not just praying, but again, financially supporting this foundation, and make sure that for as long as we have an opportunity, because the day will come, like in Iran, where they will try to black out the opportunity for us to speak. And we will then be in the dark as far as our voice. Of course, we'll never be in the dark with the Lord. But until that day, we must support a ministry like this so that we make sure that we continue to speak the truth in love.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan, and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Look around. Look hard what's happening today. Don't rely on your legacy media because they won't tell you. They are part of the problem. They withhold the truth. They hide the scale of what is happening across the world. Ireland, Germany, France, Poland, Britain, Spain, Austria, Australia, and now even Japan and Osaka. Thousands marched through the streets demanding an end to mass immigration. This is no longer a ripple. This is a wave. The world is waking up. Western nations are demanding mass deportations. Native populations are rising. Nationalism is surging across borders, and the globalists are losing their control. Do you see a pattern yet? This is how you dismantle a civilization. Not with bombs, not with armies, but with something much simpler. Open the gates, erase the borders, invite the world in. Give them food, housing, and money that your own citizens don't have. And then make resistance illegal. Call anyone who speaks out a racist, a bigot, a Nazi. That is how you silence a nation. That is how you erase sovereignty. This is the globalist blueprint. Dissolve the identity of nations, outnumber their citizens, and replace their governments with a single world order. They don't need tanks when they can use demographics. They don't need soldiers when they have policies. The invasion is silent, but it is real. They call it compassion, but listen to their own words. One man in Germany admitted it. We have more children than you. In 10 years, we will outnumber you. We will take over. That is not conspiracy. That is the plan. But now the tide is turning. America saw through it when Donald Trump secured the border in 2 weeks, exposing the lie that mass migration couldn't be stopped. Across Europe, millions are in the streets. The fight for sovereignty is no longer isolated. It is global. This is war, not of bombs, but of demographics. Not of bullets, but of policies. A war to erase you in your own land. But the people are fighting back, and once awakened, they will not go back to sleep. My friends, we are all anonymous, and maybe, just maybe, the sleeping giant of sovereign nations has awakened.
A new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. We have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founder.
Welcome back to Truth Thursday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, stopping the globalist attack on our society is critical to save our society. Many Americans and freedom loving people around the world, as you just saw, are becoming increasingly aware of the globalist agenda designed to bring all governments under centralized rule. But such radical change doesn't happen overnight. It is slow, strategic, and methodical, gradually eroding our defenses as a civilization and ultimately aimed at turning the world as we know it upside down. Unbelievable. Alan Paul Roberts is my guest today. He is spreading the message about what is happening and how we can do something about it and stop it. Robert's career has spanned over 3 decades across technology, manufacturing, international marketing, and entrepreneurship. He's an author dedicated to exposing the globalist agenda to collapse the society and usher in a new world order. In his explosive book, The Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything to Usher in a New World Order, in their own words, Mr. Roberts reveals the strategy with compelling detail, directly citing key players. He actually uses an innovative writing approach featuring QR codes. He creates an interactive multimedia experience that deepens readers' understanding of complex topics. Known for his clarity and precision, Mr. Roberts engages political thought leaders and newcomers alike in empowering audiences with this knowledge to confront today's challenges. Alan, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
So glad to be here, Colonel. Thanks for having me on.
And I might add, if you watch closely that video, the cold open video, the cover for his book, which we showed in my monologue, shows up at the end of the video. And I took that off of your X account timeline this morning. It's a great opening for this show, as a matter of fact. Thank you so much for doing the book. One of the challenges that I've seen, Alan, is, and this is why your book's important, is that a lot of people are getting it, but haven't gotten it when it comes to globalism, the globalist agenda, and how this thing is really working. They see the thing, they feel the thing, but they don't really understand all the parts of it and how the machinery works together to try to achieve its goal. Because unless we fully understand that, we can't disrupt the machine.
Absolutely. It's all about awareness. And, when it comes to globalism, I think a lot of people's eyes tend to glass over because there are so many moving parts. And so when you say globalism and the globalists, it sounds very murky and, difficult to understand what that really means. And for me, this book, I believe, is possibly the first one that makes it easy for the average person who is just new to all this to get their brain around it. And that's why I wrote it. And I actually had the experience of testing it on a friend of mine, an older lady who knew nothing about any of this. I gave her the book. I mean, she knows me, so she kind of had some trust level there. So I had that advantage, I guess you could say, but she was blown away by it. And she was like, oh my God, I never knew how the world worked. Now it all makes sense. And now that I know, I got to make a lot of changes in my life. I mean, that was her reaction.
Well, yeah. Well, you make a comment in the book that once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's why this is so important that we keep talking about this. And when I find someone like you who's seen it and put it all together in one spot, we got to get people to read this thing because there are very few writings out there that cover the whole machine from the beginning of it to what it's doing today. And until we figure that out, we can't reliably disrupt it in a continuous manner to where we can defeat it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, knowledge is the first step toward resistance to tyranny. It's when people's eyes are awakened. And, we've all, maybe all, but many of us have seen the movie The Matrix, and it talks about, you got the red pill and the blue pill. Which one do you want to take? Once you take the red pill, you're going to go down the rabbit hole and see how things really are. And I mean, that's an analogy, but it is a pretty valid analogy because your eyes are opened in it, and once you see it, once you start to see it, and you start to connect the dots between, well, in the book, it's 11 collapse points, 11 pillars of society that are focused on specifically. But once you start to understand those 11 pillars that are under attack, from open borders to the medical system, and 9 other ones. But once you start to see those and think about them, then you see current events and you start to be able to connect them to one of those 11 pillars. And it's my contention that as people become aware of this, the next step will be to push back. They'll be actually enraged by it once their eyes are opened. And we saw a little bit of this with Trump and the DEI movement. When he came in and said DEI is out of government, they started taking it out of the military. Before you knew it, it's disappearing from stores. Big companies are taking it out of their mission statements, and it was a snowball that kept rolling downhill and became an avalanche to the point where now comedians are joking about it. And I heard one comedian say, "We've just been given the license to be funny again because we don't have to worry about stepping on everyone's toes like we have been for the prior 4 years or so."
Yeah. So you've done a lot of things, Alan. You had a lot of experience, especially in business and manufacturing and technology. What were the thing or things that opened your eyes that triggered you to be able to see this enough to know you needed to write about it?
Well, there were a couple things that happened that then led up to one major event that was my tipping point. But I had done a lot of business in Europe with international marketing, and had spent a lot of time traveling to different countries in Europe and experiencing the cultures and really enjoying the culture. And the same for Japan and Australia. I've been to lots of different places, but when I first saw around 2011, the massive immigration coming into Europe, Western Europe, I was alarmed because at least the videos I saw at the time, which a lot of those have been taken offline, but the videos that I saw just pouring in, coming over the bridges, stuffed with them, coming over walls even. I mean, almost like a like a zombie movie, some of these were, you know what I mean? Just the
Yeah.
massive flood. It was shocking to me. And I thought they are going to lose their culture. Their culture is going to be so diluted, they won't know what it means to be a German or, an Englishman or, from Belgium or whatever it is. They're flooding in. It's Italy. It's all going to be so watered down and unrecognizable that we won't even know what European culture is anymore. And sure enough, that's exactly what's happened, because those spigots have been opened from 2011 through today. There's still mass migration. Now, we've had the benefit of Trump's first term where he shut it off. Now, we were being pressured to take all kinds of migrants from Europe, and he said no. And he had specific countries where he wouldn't take any regardless of what the reason was. But then, of course, Biden got in, the floodgates were wide open. We had 4 years, who knows, 20 million or so illegal immigrants. And now it's shut off again, but they've had it open this whole time. That was the first thing that opened my eyes, and really it was kind of led to a kind of feeling of despair, like, oh my gosh, there's no way to undo this. At the time it felt like, but the second thing that happened to me in April 2024, and I've explained this on a couple other podcasts. I'll be brief here, but what happened is I woke up one morning in April 2024, one Saturday morning, late April, and I had something happen to me that's never happened before or since. I call it like a God moment. But I woke up at around 4 a.m, and it was a flash of instant knowledge that's very difficult to describe. But I had this flash. I was wide awake, laying in bed, getting ready to get out of bed and use the bathroom. I had this flash of initially six pillars of society, American and Western, but primarily American society, that were all under attack and in danger of collapsing. I didn't know what was being done. I just knew, like, as a fact, they are under attack and they're coming down if something doesn't change. And I was startled. I was shocked, startled. It wasn't a fearful thing, but it was just like, wow, an eye-opening experience. So I wrote, I keep paper and pen in the bathroom. I wrote them down, and I was just like, wow, what just happened to me? And then I tried to go back to bed, laid there a couple minutes, and I got three different pillars. And I get up and write them down, try to get back to sleep. I'm thinking about these 6 + 3, 9, and I got two more. And I know some people say that sounds unbelievable, but I'm telling you, I'm a busy guy. I run a small business. I had no plans to write a book, but this was so clear. And so I could perceive this with a clarity I've never had in my life. And in that moment, after the last two, I was like, God, what are you doing? Why are you showing me this? This seems like an odd thing. It's not religious. What is going on? And I said, do you want me to write a book? I'm like puzzled. Do you want me to write a book? And if you want me to write a book, what's the title? And I'm telling you, that entire title that you just read, The Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything to Usher in a New World Order, was instantly there. I mean, completely in a flash of a second, it was right there. There was no time lapse. I didn't hear individual words. I just instantly knew the title. And and then because this was so clear and unusual and overpowering, I felt like I got to do it. I'm going to research, because I didn't know what was being done, like I said, but I'm going to research these 11 and write the book. And so that's what I did.
Well, fantastic. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear a little clip from I consider one of the fathers of globalism, Klaus Schwab, about who are the stakeholders. We'll be right back with a great author of a great book. I'm Rob Maness.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
What type of stakeholders do we have? The constituencies.
Stakeholders, we have, if I look at our stakeholders, we have business, of course, as a very important audience, and we have politics, we have continuous partnerships with many governments around the world. Then, of course, we have NGOs, we have trade unions, we have all those different parts.
Media, of course.
Media, of course, and very important experts and scientists and academia. Because if we are looking at the future, I think we should look at new solutions, and the new solutions will be very much driven by technological developments.
And we even have, you even have religious leaders, right?
We have religious leaders, we have social entrepreneurs, very important social entrepreneurs.
Thursday, we're talking about that man's baby, their globalism, and the threat it has to every society, but especially the American society, and how we can identify what it is, what it's doing, how they're doing it, and then develop tactics, techniques, and procedures, to use military terms, to disrupt that globalist attempt to create a one world government. My guest today is the author of a book that gives us those tools and identifies those things for us, Alan Paul Roberts. Alan, that clip is very telling. A couple of things out of it. One is Schwab covers all of his stakeholders in that, which includes religion, religious leaders, and those kind of things. Most people go, business, politicians, et cetera. But then he goes into the media, religious leaders, and the three most important things, what? Scientists, academia, that kind of stuff. You know, that is where their biggest amount of rot is when it comes to globalist infestation in the institutions of the United States, is in those areas.
Yeah, I would agree. It's rot, and unfortunately, it's also power. They've corrupted these institutions that you're mentioning here, but in the process of corrupting them, they've also, for the most part, taken control of them, or taken enough control that that it is really a dangerous situation. In the book, we talk about a lot of these different systems, and the banking system, in my opinion, is actually the control point where they have the most power, and where, as citizens of the U.S. and of any Western nation, we're under the most threat, because that is on a razor's edge right now. What the Fed did when they, which is just one central bank of many, right? It's the U.S. central bank, but what the Fed did when they raised those interest rates from near zero to around 5%, they put almost every bank in the country in danger of being underwater with their assets, their treasury bills, which had been valued around between say a tenth of a percent to maybe 1%. Maybe some older ones were 2 or 2.5%. But when you raise the rates to 5, everything is now a ratio of that value. So if it was 2.5 and now it's 5, your treasuries are worth half what they were. If it's 1 and now it's 5, you took an 80% drop in value. So if there's a run on the bank, then they will have to cash them in at a loss and be in danger of going under, at which point they'll be forced to do a bail-in, which they can legally do, to take your money and give you bank stock in return. So, if that happens on a big enough scale, then, we're off to the races with, a digital currency, of some type. Which is why I believe the Trump administration is trying to get control of that digital currency on their own terms before they're forced to take a central bank digital currency on terms they don't want.
The idea of the centralized bank digital currency, for those of us that have been watching this and working to develop methodologies to prevent it, is one of the, when coupled with things like real ID, is probably the central threat to the individual's freedom, right?
Oh, absolutely. That is the biggest threat. And, the ability that they're going to have, and the book has, on that point, the book has 175 QR codes that you can scan with your cell phone to jump from the book to a supporting video or a supporting document. And there is a video on this topic that takes you to the not the World Bank. Gosh, I can't think what the name of it is. But the leader of this bank is basically discussing in detail, like right out loud, the control that they'll have. He talks about they'll have the control to be able to turn your money off, to turn it on, to decide what you're allowed to spend it on and not spend it on. I mean, it's absolute control. There's no government in the intervening in here. So we're at their mercy. Under their plan, we will be at their mercy if we let them, take it to that level.
And we've had windows into that threat in reality in the pandemic, right? I mean, what happened in Canada with the trucker protesters up there that completely shut down their money, completely, right? The way I
they
understood
did.
it.
Yeah, they did. They froze their bank accounts. they were able to do it so quickly, and that's even without this system. So you can see, you can imagine if they had a system where all your money is digital, where there's no cash, where things just work on a whole different system. We saw the level of tyranny that certain governors were implementing, in New Jersey and other places. We saw the businesses that were forced to shut down. We saw what happened when they tried to buck that system. So you can imagine if they had the absolute authority to be able to turn your money off and on, digitally from a computer terminal, right? You could just imagine how that could be abused.
Well, yeah, and if you have no cash, no legal tender other than digital, I mean, you're really, as my dad would say, you're up a creek without a paddle.
Oh, absolutely. So that is my biggest concern. Um, but they have control over so many systems. You're talking, you're going back to what Klaus Schwab was saying there and naming all these stakeholders. If
Yeah.
you combine, the banking system with the United Nations and the World Health Organization, which, thank God we were pulled out of that by Trump. But if you think about the World Health Organization, for example, we were signed up under Biden, along with over 160 other countries, to submit to the World Health Organization as the final authority in terms of declaring a pandemic and declaring what the protocol would be under that pandemic, like lockdowns, like businesses being forced to shut down, social distancing, all the things we saw, during the first lockdown in 2020. They would have worldwide unilateral authority to decide that for all these countries who were signed up with them. So, those two things alone, the banking system, the medical system, and what they consider like an emergency, can cover all kinds of things that maybe have not that much to do with health, but they pull it into health in order to gain control over it. So it's really a frightening thing.
I mean,
But
just one piece of the health part, they were trying to implement a digital vaccine passport. I actually served on a task force to stop it.
Oh, thank God.
As one of the one of my organizations, the Committee on Present Danger China, stood up this Stop Vaccines task force during the pandemic, and it was very difficult to get people to go from, look, we have to get shots to go overseas. Everybody's had a written shot record. You show it to get your visa in some places, et cetera. And making the step to a digital vaccine passport where you're controlled every time you want to travel. They could even control you going from state to state, or even outside of your neighborhood or out of your house, even, is what was being discussed by these globalist organizations. Well, we can fence off someone's house and prevent them from leaving the house.
Exactly. And if you look at some of these countries, the UK, Australia, they were extremely heavy-handed. In Australia, they had people in camps. I mean, you've probably seen some of the videos where, they actually arrested them and put them in camps. So the level of tyranny in some of these, I call them British Crown countries, is very extreme. And we have Canada just to the north that's also far more tyrannical, let's say, than many countries. But you take Australia, Canada, the UK, they're all very heavy-handed on that, and in other ways too, in terms of people being arrested for social media tweets, people being arrested for praying outside of an abortion clinic 100 yards away. I've seen videos in the UK where a cop comes up to a guy 100 yards from an abortion clinic and asks them, "What are you praying about?" And he wants to know what's in your brain. And they will arrest you if you say, "I'm praying for these people at the abortion clinic. I'm praying for these babies. I'm praying for these mothers." They'll arrest you. I mean, it's unbelievable. Where did freedom go?
It's crazy. I mean, a silent prayer. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
It is unbelievable. And the banking and finance, the borders, that's just two of the 11 pillars that you write about. Let's tell folks, if you can,
Sure.
exactly what the other 9 are, and how
Yeah.
how they work together.
Okay, so I arranged the pillars and what I would consider to be the most obvious to perhaps the least obvious, but here's the 11. National borders, security and police protection, privacy, banking and finance, education, energy, environment, medical system, food supply, and the last 2 are different: self-identity and faith. These are the last 2 pretty much form your identity and your moral character. But these 11 together are vital to sustaining a free, complex society. You can have a tyrannical society without self-identity, without faith, but you
Yeah.
can't have a free society without those 2.
Exactly right. Well, we got to take another break. When we come back, we'll dive even further into that and find out what Alan discovered about how these 11 work and where are the openings to disrupt them, and see if he can give us some insight into that without giving the whole book away. We want you to go buy the book because it's a good book. You got to go check it out. I'll be right back on Truth Thursday here.
At the same time, we are witnessing rapid technological advances with many opportunities and with artificial intelligence rapidly transforming our production and our lives. And breakthroughs from the fourth industrial revolution provide new opportunities for global prosperity and growth. All those factors will have a profound impact on the future of humanity, provided we are able to work together. To drive future economic growth, we must embrace innovation and foster collaboration across sectors, regions, nations, and cultures to create a more peaceful, inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future. At this critical juncture, the active participation of all stakeholders is essential to ensure a sustainable development path. I'm delighted that close to 2,000 leaders from multiple sectors representing some 80 countries and regions have come to Dalian for this year's meeting.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and globalism is real. You heard one of its leaders. I know he's retired from the World Economic Forum that he founded, but Klaus Schwab there talking about how the collaboration of these stakeholders has to be forced. That's the key phrase in all that word salad you just heard. Forced collaboration. Of course, we're talking about government force, societal force, but mainly government force. And my guest today is the author of a great book about this, how to identify the agenda using their own words, and to look at that. The title's "The Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything and Usher in a New World Order." It's very important. Alan Paul Roberts is my guest today. Alan, uh, the we see one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is we see how the elements of the 11 pillars infiltration, that's what I call it, the infiltration of these pillars. There are certain ones that we see have impact visibly every day right now. The national borders piece, the education system, uh, and the self identity environment systems are all infiltrated and working together. And what I mean by the evidence that you see every day is, for instance, let's just take for instance, the anti-ICE protests. I don't call them protests, really. That's the wrong word. They are insurrection operations that most often include violent direct action, and are organized quite often by Antifa, domestic terrorists, and their funders, through various non government organizations. But they're all using those particular pillars to get this job done.
Yeah, and you mentioned their funders. That's really what we have to focus on is where's the money coming from. So like George
Mhm.
Soros's Open Society Foundations and so many of these non-government organizations that have incredible funding and the ability to coordinate their efforts along with the goals of the World Economic Forum and the globalists behind lots of these organizations. But I agree, they really do work together. If you take the first two, national borders and security and police protection, you can see how those tie into each other because they opened the border wide open. And at the same
Mhm.
time, they defunded the police. So there's not only less police, but they made them less confident in doing their job, afraid of being sued or doxxed or not supported by their mayors, or the criminals getting right out on the street an hour after they're arrested because there's cashless bail now. So these two things go together, open the borders and make the people less secure. A reduction in security, a reduction in police protection, which is an increase in law and order, and an attempt, these are two pillars to bring the country down. So
Mhm.
what Trump is trying to do by sending in the National Guard is a indirect opposition to these big blue city mayors and governors who are trying intentionally to make their states and their cities less safe and more chaotic. It's an intentional thing. And you combine this with what we've talked about, pillar number 3, privacy, the ability to surveil is at its highest point in history, at a point tyrants of the past could only dream of. I mean, if you combine the phone surveillance, we saw what happened to the J6ers. They got the phone records. Anybody that was in the area, got a knock on the door from the FBI. Many of them got thrown into prison without a trial, sitting there until they were, acquitted by Trump. But the power to round up based on phone records, based on
Mhm.
email communications, based on your social media, all this stuff is being tracked and surveilled, at an increasingly sophisticated level, which is why some people have such a problem with Palantir being involved in our current, government, efforts that are going on right now with getting contracts and things like that. I mean, we have to really be on our guard to make sure that this is not abused because it could so easily be abused. I mean, we saw that in the last administration where they were trying to, Joe Biden with his famous speech with the red lights in the background and the Marine
Mhm.
Guards talking about, the MAGA folks being the biggest threat to the nation. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
can imagine when you combine the power of surveillance with that intent, the amount of power the government has. Um, but yeah, like you said, you mentioned education as one of the pillars. And in the book, it gets into, this has been a problem for decades.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
an interview in there from the 80s, I believe it is, um, where Sowell is his name, is an influential black man, well educated, but he grew up
Mhm.
in Harlem, and he claimed at the time his education in Harlem is better than the high-priced private school education his daughter can get today. That's how
Yeah.
far our school systems, have fallen. So it's been a long gradual slide that is accelerating or has accelerated. And we saw evidence of that, during the COVID crisis. People saw what their kids were learning or not learning, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
They saw it, right in front of them on their computer screens.
Exactly right. Are you? Do you address one of the concerns I have, and I was just wondering if you address it in your discussion of the pillars, uh, is that the civil service of the federal, state, and local government, there since the Obama administration began, there's been a concerted effort to hire devotees of globalism. Quite honestly, I mean that's the bottom line there, and the way the system is built for the career civil servants, very difficult to fire them. The president has some latitude, and you mentioned the things that he's trying to do. It was some of the stuff. I mean, just explain to folks just how difficult it is because of the way we're structured and the actions that have been taken, like I was just talking about with the civil service.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was alarming to me how when Obama got in, you would know this figure better than me, but didn't he fire dozens of generals and replace them with woke generals?
It
Just as
was
one example.
It was over 200. Now he used a combination of of mostly retirements.
Okay,
When you're a general, you basically get told, "Hey, it's time for you to retire," and you go.
sure.
But yeah, he did replace a lot, and the crop that we have today, we're very fortunate. President Trump was able to find Dan Kane, the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs, but he only found him through his actions when he was working for him as commander in chief, when he eliminated the ISIS caliphate in a very short
Interesting.
period of time. But the rest, many of the rest of these folks have been devoted to this globalism idea, which is extra constitutional and those kind of things. And the generals and admirals are just as devoted to it. I mean, when in the military, when the boss gives an order and you think it's lawful, you're required to pick it up and run with it and aggressively implement it as if it's your own order. You know?
Oh yeah, yeah, and you're right. It spreads all down through the ranks, which makes it so pernicious. It's so hard to get these people out because
Mhm.
some of them, they're mostly not voted in. They're just
Yeah,
assigned, and
yeah.
so they're trying to extract these people, and it's almost like a parallel to trying to get the illegals out once they're here, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's at it's at a very rapid pace now, but there's so many to get out that it feels like an almost impossible task. And I think it's the same with, what we'll call the deep state, the people who have been assigned. And it even includes judges, all the judges. We see what's happening
Hmm.
with all the pushback. Every time Trump tries to take two steps forward, it's one step back with some judge saying you can't do that. And then you get delayed. Then you go up to the Supreme Court. And then finally he's free again to keep moving forward. But
Hmm.
that goes all the way down through these agencies. I mean, I've heard different people talking about some of the people really just one or two layers down and the problems they're causing even at the Department of Justice. The people that are in place that probably need to be removed, to let things run freely the way Trump's vision is for the country. I mean, he's commander in chief. He has the right to have his staff,
Hmm.
but you go down past that first layer and then things start to get a little uncertain, let's call it.
Yeah, it's just like his role as commander in chief. There's no other part of the Constitution that gives any power to anybody to overrule Donald Trump's powers as commander in chief to do things like send the National Guard in and nationalize them, or declare an insurrection is taking place. So Congress doesn't have a role in that. Now, they do have a role in declaring all-out war and approving the use of military force, but they have gone on record and left a lot of these approvals in place from the global war on terror. So that's what the president, I'm sure, his legal team's using one of those for attacking these drug boats in Venezuela, in the Gulf of America, out in the water in international waters, because he has the authority given to him by Congress. Plus, he's using it's a defensive approach. He's got a responsibility to defend the United States. We're losing 100,000 Americans a year to fentanyl coming through.
Sworn oath, right? A sworn oath.
Yeah, it's a sworn oath. So it's very interesting. Well, we got one more segment left. I want to use your philosophy that and what you wrote in the book as a case study for the communists that's about to win the mayor's race in New York City, and talk through what you're seeing from the perspective of what your book tells us and how this is working, because it appears he's winning. We'll be right back with Alan Paul Roberts. Got to stop this globalism, folks.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
What did you make of the New York Democrat primary? I'm Donnie.
He's a communist. I think it's very bad for New York. I don't know that he's going to get in. It's inconceivable that but he's a communist, and he's a pure communist. I think he admits it, but I can't imagine it. But let's say this. If he does get in, I'm going to be president, and he's going to have to do the right thing, or they're not getting any money. He's got to do the right thing. It's shocking that I would have assumed that I used to say we will never have a socialist in this country. No, but we'll have a communist. I mean, he's a communist and going to be mayor of New York. So I was very surprised when I said, I never heard of him. I don't know who he is.
Well, he said he's going to fight ICE. He's not going to allow ICE to...
He'll be very unsuccessful.
And he said if Benjamin Netanyahu comes to New York, he's going to have him arrested.
Oh, he's a radical left lunatic.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and Mondami is a case study. Today's guest, the author of this great book about globalism, that gives you a set of lenses and a framework to view the globalist agenda through, identify the different pillars that the agenda is using using that framework, and then identify how can we disrupt it. And my guest is the author of that great book, Alan Paul Roberts. Alan, the Mondami is a case study in this. I mean, he is a immigrant. He's a naturalized citizen. I think he's only been a citizen for 7 years. He's really not had anything but a government job. He's an Islamist and Marxist, so the Red-Green Alliance, what we talk about there, that is co-opting globalism, in my opinion, or working with it. Maybe it's a Red-Green Globalist Alliance. What's the color for globalism? Blue. So Red-Green-Blue Alliance is there. The security and police protection piece is there. He has said he will defund the police, and he wants to send social workers to calls first, if at all possible. You know how that's going to go. And it just goes on and on and on, right? Tell me I'm wrong.
No, unfortunately, you're 100% right on. And to me, this is partly a reflection of the low quality and the failure to teach history in our school system. I mean, you and I grew up having an understanding of what communism was. I mean, you go back through, the Vietnam War, North versus South Vietnam, the domino theory of nations falling as the communists took over more and more. I mean, there was the USSR and all the countries that fell to communism for 70 years until that was finally disbanded. People don't understand what's at stake, so they believe these lies. They believe these socialist, communist lies that, oh yeah, the government can take over the grocery stores. The government can take over the housing. I mean, he was just quoted recently. I saw, recently I saw a quote that went back actually a couple years where he's talking about possibly abolishing private property, that, we should look at how can everybody have housing? And if that means the end of private property, then so be it, because, the end justifies the means. I mean, this is like crazy land, would never have been accepted. But yet, you see in education, these college professors, they're spewing this philosophy. So it's no wonder he's popular with all the college age kids, because they're buying the lie. It's such a failure of our education system.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad you brought up the grocery stores, because food supply is one of the 11 pillars you write about. I mean, most people, when you see the term food supply, you might think of food security, which we hear a lot of the agriculture secretary, Brooke Rollins, talk about these days, because there's some threats out there from China that we've disrupted and intercepted, and some that we think they've been successful with over the years. But this is taking over the food supply by government, which every American that's over the age of 40 knows that that's never going to work. You're going to end up with pictures and videos of long lines and bare shelves. That's the way it works with government trying to do.
Always, always. When government tries to control things that are controlled by supply and demand, it always fails. I mean, and they'll put price controls in to try to hold the price down, then the supply dries up. And then, then the underground market comes in and people are willing to pay whatever they have to pay to get it. But, it's not just government with these globalists. It's the union, the merging of government and big corporations. These mega corporations, are really part of the whole control system. It's a public-private partnership. You hear that expression. That really is what it is with these major companies, these non-governmental organizations. They all kind of work together. But without the companies and the money that's behind the companies, they would not be able to have near the power that they do. In the book, there's a section called "Who Owns the World?" Who owns the world? And it's the best video in the whole book. There's a QR code; it'll take you right to it. In that video, they do a live Yahoo business search. You go in through Yahoo Finance, Yahoo Business, and you just look up who owns this company, who owns that company, who owns Boeing, who owns Airbus, Coke, Pepsi. Take every competitor, Microsoft versus, all their tech competitors. And then what you find out is they keep rolling it up. Who owns it? Who owns it? The same small group of companies own it all. And then it comes down to eventually, Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street are the big three, the big triad at the top. And then they own each other's stock. But in the end, Vanguard has the greatest amount of control. So in a sense, Vanguard owns the world. But Vanguard's organized in a way that you are not allowed to know who owns Vanguard. So the real question is, who has controlling interest over most of Vanguard? That's who really owns the world in terms of the control. But that's why they have such control over the media. Well, you've probably seen these videos where everybody's parroting the same talking point. Yeah. And it's because they really do control the news media. The news media gets the major news media, we'll call it, gets their information from the same sources. So the teleprompters are being fed by many of the same sources, which is why they say the exact same thing. Because their teleprompter feeds are getting information from these research organizations that really supply the big news the big news feeds, and all the way down to your local news. Sometimes there's a there's a video in the book where everybody's saying "Build Back Better" at the same time, and yeah, I don't know if you can see. This is a graphic from the book where you see the parrots there, and the parrots are there because everybody's parroting the same phrase, "Build Back Better," and you see all these government leaders, 30 or 40 of them saying "Build Back Better," which happens to be Joe Biden's campaign slogan, which was a signal to all these other globalists that, hey, we're on the same page, build back better, which really means burn it to the ground and then rebuild the world order, new world order. That's what they really mean by that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So looking at this Mondani phenomenon that's happening in New York City, I mean, we're talking a city of 8 million people. He's been in the House of Delegates for a few years before this. So he's not unknown totally. His funding is questionable, from what I understand. A lot of it is, but he's also got the media. I mean, even Fox News gave him a fairly friendly interview.
Yes.
So how do we, from your book's perspective, what type of approach should we take to disrupt that, or is it too late?
Yeah, I don't think it's too late, but I think we're in danger. I believe all these pillars really are in danger of coming down. But the main thing is actually awareness and education. People have to become aware, have to have their eyes opened. I mean, probably everybody listening to this podcast right now can probably trace their journey. I call it the red pill journey. What did it take to open your eyes and get you to finally see it? In college, you have one view, you start making money, you see how much taxes are taking out, you start to get a little bit of a different view, and then you get wiser and more experienced, and your view eventually evolves. But on the kind of things we're talking about, I think it takes a very concerted effort to spread the truth about this, which for me, that's the book. But it's what we're all trying to do. We all have a role here. Everybody that's in the alternative news media, and trying to make an effort. But I mean, the book in particular is written in a way that it really can open people's eyes. I really think it's a red pill experience for doubters. That's really who it's written for the most. Everybody will benefit because it helps you connect all the dots, and it'll give you like a very complete perspective. It's a beginning to research from there and go even deeper. But for people who don't believe any of this really can open their eyes, because it starts off like, who are the globalists? What are their goals? And then it gets into the 11 pillars that they're trying to take down, and it provides the proof, video by video and article by article. You can see it for yourself. So it's not me saying it as much as it is watching it, hearing it, going deeper, including UN documents and everything for people that really want to go deep. But then it's okay, they're trying to do this, and then it's, how do we push back? How do we become mentally resilient and able to really spread the word and push back? And then the final one is just like coping. Okay, what if the worst were to happen? What should we be doing to prepare? In various ways to minimize the impact to ourselves and our family. But I, in my heart of hearts, I believe this can be won. I mean, at the beginning of this process, it was kind of hard doing all this research and seeing all this evidence for what they're doing. It was kind of discouraging. But as I kept going, I felt like, no, we can. I started seeing people's reactions as their minds are being opened to the truth of this, and it causes an awakening where people have two reactions. It's like no and hell no, and we want to get them to the hell no stage where they're pushing back hard, because that's where things start to really happen. But however we do it, we have to wake people up. That's the way it changes. Just like it did with the DEI that I think I mentioned earlier. That became a movement, and now everybody's like, we're done with this, Yeah,
a good place to start to get people to the hell no is New York City right now.
Yes.
Got an election in 2 weeks. or less than 2 weeks now. Brandon Strock of the Walkaway Movement, by the way, is up there working. You should go check him out, folks, if you haven't seen it. Another good place to start is all these blue cities that are having people out there attacking ICE agents and attacking independent media journalists and those kind of places. Everybody needs to get to the hell no really fast in those areas for sure. But yeah, I like that. Let's get to the hell no. This is a great companion book to the book that I talk about a lot, and that's General Flynn and Boone Cutler's The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare, which is really all about the independent messaging, not just independent media, but of citizens too, and being able to defend yourselves from the corporate and government messaging trying to be inserted in your brain. Well, Alan, thank you so much for previewing the book for us here on the Rob Maness Show. I got about 20 seconds left. Tell folks where they can find you and find the book.
Sure. Yeah. The best way is just to go to globalcollapsebook.com. And once you're there, you can order a signed copy if you like. They also come in sets of 3, 6, 9, and 3, 6, and 18. The more, the lower the price, of course, but it's a way to spread the word. At the bottom of the page, you can see my social media links. There's also links to buy it on Amazon if you just want to do it that way as well. And I should just say, in total transparency, there is also an edits tab where I've made clarifications and corrections to a couple things in the book it's important to know that too. So just head on over to globalcollapsebook.com.
Well, sir, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get you back someday.
It sounds great. Thanks, Colonel. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Monday, more War Monday. This is the war we're talking about with retired Air Force Lieutenant General Rod Bishop, who is the chairman emeritus of STARS.us, the Air Force Academy group that helped Pete Hicks stop DEI and woke, but the job's not done yet. And General Bishop's got some updated information he's got to tell us. So I'll see you then on Worldview YouTube.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of Live Up to Freedom. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are live on worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube, Rumble, and X account. Also, if you have the app, you can watch all of our streams, not just mine, on WorldviewTube app. And if you haven't installed it, pretty easy, for free. Just go to your app store, look up WorldviewTube, and install the app. And make sure to set your notifications to where you will receive notifications when we go live or when there's a breaking news going on. We are also live on X America News on X. We are live on my platforms on Rumble, 2 YouTube channels, Facebook, and Substack. And as always, we are live, so I will check on the comment sections. Today, most likely, I turn my whole body to do it instead of just my neck. But I will check on the comments. I will read them. If you have questions, comments, any information adding to the discussion, I will greatly appreciate it. And share the feed. I'm not going to say it's the most important feed that's airing today, but I would say someone out there might need to hear the information, or they might be confused, and this conversation might give them some answers. We have a lot to talk about. A lot has happened, but I want to talk to you first. I just want to talk to you first. I'm sure we all have had our days, especially last 3 weeks, of frustration, confusion, uncertainty, and all of that. But one thing I kind of faced plenty this weekend, I should say starting Friday evening, is I feel like the switch for thinking has been permanently disabled in majority of population. Why do I say that? I have, those of you who follow me, especially on Facebook and Substack, you've seen my reporting. There are times where I'm just reporting, meaning I'm just giving you the information that's out there. There are times where I'm analyzing, there are times where I'm explaining, and there are times where I'm doing investigative journalism and writing about them for different things, all with the same goal and, agenda, but different things. On starting Friday evening until today, one thing I noticed is, my mind doesn't change. My tone has never changed in the last 10 years. And it's not going to change. Somebody asked me yesterday if there was one thing, guaranteed, and there was one thing you could remove from planet Earth, what would that be? And I was like, Islam. They don't even need to think. And they're like, whoa, wait, let me finish my sentence. I'm like, you don't need to. They're like, well, how about poverty or drugs and illness and all of that? And I was like, no, I'm sure 9 out of 10 people will think about that. So if it comes to my choice, I'm going to remove Islam, because with Islam gone, millions, maybe billions of lives are going to be better. So my tone won't change. I don't do radical. I don't do moderate. I don't do hijacked. I don't do any of that. There's Islam proven for those who care to know the truth. But what I have noticed is the change of tone, but change of tone in I'm trying to be polite here, or at least choose my words carefully, in a ridiculous way. 3 weeks ago until today, I kept reporting of, well, this is not a peace. There has not been a signature on any paper from the two parties of being Israel and Hamas. Stop getting ahead of yourself. You should not negotiate with terrorists, all of that. But then I was attacked, as you know, or I saw other people celebrating, cheering, all of that. And then starting Friday evening, I started seeing the, well, that didn't last long, or why did you think it would last? Like a few of them I actually asked and said, aren't you the same person who told me not to be a Debbie Downer? Now you're claiming that you knew this isn't going to last? Of course, there was no answer. The reason I'm bringing this up is I'm starting to worry about our society, and I'm not just talking about America. I'm talking human society. Do we think anymore? Or do we turn on our preferred platform, we see what's out there and we just go with the flow? Like, are you all forgetting how to swim? That's my question. Figure of speech, of course. I recently was told that my sentences and sarcasm can be confusing at times, so I'm trying to be careful with that too. Do we think anymore? I do. Do you think anymore? Or do you contradict yourself on a daily basis without even noticing that you're contradicting yourself, which tells people like me that you're not thinking? Because if you had any kind of thought process of your own that was not led by the popular clicks on social media or your favorite person in administration, then you wouldn't flip-flop like the government every day. This is a scary. Government flip-flopping is part of politics. The reason politicians are politicians is because they have mastered the art of flip-flopping and never admitting to flip-flopping, right? Has our society become all politicians now? It's very concerning, at least for me. Saturday, I highly doubt my audience have not heard, but on Saturday, ceasefire broke. Now you have those who will say Hamas did it, you have those who will say Israel did it, and then you have me who said, who cares who did it? I really don't care who broke this ceasefire. I don't. Because it was an unstable, fragile, up-in-the-air ceasefire from the beginning that was called a peace deal. So it doesn't matter who did what when. What matters is the illusion continues. You have those who come on and say, well, it's Hamas. Of course, you shouldn't have expected it to last. Not that I did. But then you have President Trump himself on Sunday, after tons, and by tons, I don't mean number-wise, I mean weight-wise. Thanks to English, I have to explain. Probably there's a different pronunciation. But anyways, tons of bombs were dropped. And a bunch of people died. I think 2 or 3 IDF soldiers were killed. A couple of Hamas members were killed. President Trump looks people in the eye and say, the ceasefire is in place. Does he not know what a ceasefire means? Or is he genuinely that bluntly lying flat out at this point? And the moment he says that, everybody's tone on social media changes again. Peace, peace, everlasting. Bombs are still landing. Hello. Bombs are still landing. Rightfully so, Israel government shut down all the aids coming into Gaza. I should note this. I'm trying not to, guys. If you see me move hard or stiff, or if I sound a little out of breath, the next situation has got worse in the last couple of days. So I don't want to fail and take the week off or whatever. But when I breathe, the back of my shoulder actually have a sharp pain. So if you hear that, it's not that I'm having a heart attack because of the topic. It's just my neck and shoulder situation. He's lying, and then social media tone changes. Everybody, those who were complaining Friday night and Saturday, come back to being all cheerful and happy Sunday. Come on. Let's do a quick reality check. There was